This is such a pleasure, and we're so appreciative that you would take the time to do this for us. We really, really appreciate it. We've, as a group, determined we're going to meet in person, and we're taking temperatures and have hand sanitizing solutions ready. But what else are you seeing that we could be doing to be more careful as we are meeting in person?
So tell me again how many people you all have normally.
The group is probably 350, but I don't think we've ever had more than, say, 70-ish, and that's been outside, 75, something like that, outside. And we were able to distance then because we had a lot of tables outside. But we're getting ready to meet inside. So I think it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be careful.
Yeah. Shelley, let me share this with Lisa too on KBA. So Lisa, for KBA, they've typically through the years have 500 plus members. Yep. And the biggest gathering, the typical events on a monthly basis. We have a luncheon up at the KSU Continuing Education Center that, I don't know, Bill and Jonathan, you guys can tell me, I guess normally it's north of 150 people, and probably state of the city, we may jam close to 200 in there. I'm working with, I was past president of KBA years ago, but on a lot of the calls, just giving them examples and the guidance of what you've shared with us from the chamber and how we're doing things like, let's say it at the Strand Theater where we only have 50 people instead of 600, or the Roxy, 150 instead of 700. So thinking about the different environments they have, KBA also has a Wake Up KBA event, and that's typically 30 to 40 folks that would be at a gathering. And then we've got an after hours event that varies at locations. And then I guess, Shelley, you guys have we have a fifth Tuesday luncheon, which is usually in the 30s. Also.
And the women.
And the women's gathering. And I think, Lisa, the guidance they're probably looking at, whatever that room setting, understanding what you have seen, whether it's chambers or other protocols. I've shared with them our COVID page and told them the chamber wants to partner with KBA to continue to have that guidance, because I know you and Dana and Sharon and we all have lots of calls to continue to have, as each update comes from the governor's office or federal, we're leaning to you guys to kind of give us that next guidance to have the adaptive, safe, in public events, just to give people choice. We're not thinking, that like KBA knows if they shoot a luncheon tomorrow, even if they allowed everybody to come sit 150, they're not going to have that type of crowd. And they're just trying to get under their feet from a group to hear and understand what their opening could or should possibly look like. So I think, is that a fair opening, Shelley?
It certainly is. And I thought that was more than she needed to know. She should try to figure this out, John. You're making it so easy for her.
So, and you all serve food at all of these locations, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they also streamed at the same time? Can people log on virtually, or can just listen later?
Well, I'm saying that I'm getting that confused with another group. We have not been streaming, but we're trying to get that together for next week.
Okay. So generally, I'm sure you've seen the news, or maybe you've visited our website or the DPH website. We're still in a high spread category of Cobb County, and so that's not encouraging, right? We've got widespread community transmission, which means we all still need to be really careful. So generally when I'm working with businesses, I would say there's kind of three categories. And I would recommend that you guys link into the Cobb Chambers COVID reopening guidance. It's on the Chamber's website. I worked an awful lot with Dana Johnson and a lot of folks on that committee to put together that document. So it's got some really good guidance in writing that I'd still reference you to.
Okay.
But basically, kind of look at three things. One would be, okay, what can you do to keep the virus out of your meetings, right, as much as possible? So that's the kind of thing where you say, if you're feeling sick, if you're having any symptoms, please don't come to our meeting. Link in virtually. If you are a direct contact and you're quarantining, don't come out of quarantine to come to the meetings, right? And
Right.
so, and then are you all doing any like symptom checks for people when they first come in?
We've just been doing the temperature checks.
So I would, what we found with this virus is that not everybody is running a fever. It is a good idea to still do the temperature check, but sometimes we have a little charts that you could, and CDC does as well, that you can print off and just have in a stand right there.
Okay.
It says, as you coming in, do you have any of these symptoms, right? And you have the little chart right there. And hopefully people have heard that enough that they're not going to come if they have symptoms. But sore throats and loss of taste and smell are also some really common symptoms without them running a fever particularly.
Lisa, is that something that we can get from your website?
Yep. Let me make a couple of notes and I'll send that to you.
You're awesome.
So all the things that you can do to keep it out of the meeting, like on your website or where you have people register for a meeting. Do they pre-register for your meeting?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
So anywhere, if you have that on your registration that just says, please be reminded that if you have any of these symptoms or if you've been not feeling well, we would encourage you to link in virtually to our meetings in order to protect other folks. So that's the kind of keeping it out of the meeting. The problem with that is that we know that there's probably 35% or so of people who have no symptoms and they can still be infectious. And so I still recommend that you do the symptom check because you're still going to check, you're still going to catch 65% of the people.
Right.
But there are going to be people who come in who aren't trying to pull something over on you. They really don't feel badly. And they're not and they're just coming to work and coming to a meeting. And right. So from that perspective, then you go to the second stage, which is what can we do to decrease the risk of transmission between people? And so that's where you get into the social distancing, right? That the way this is spread is that if I talk or laugh or sing or sneeze or whatever, if I'm infectious, my infected respiratory droplets come out and they land on you, right? They land in your mouth, you breathe them in your nose, they get in your eyes, they get on your hands, you eat, and you put your fingers in your mouth, and that's how the virus then transmits over to another person. So as much as you can keep that physical distancing between people is good. So, coming up with and not shaking hands. So if you can come up with some cute things of tapping elbows or just waving or whatever, right? So that you're not shaking hands with people and not hugging everybody. That can help keep some distance. And it's a pain in the neck. I don't think I've had a hug since March 1st. And so I am so ready for that. Yeah. So my daughter came into town this weekend, and I haven't seen her since February 1st. And she came in, I'm like, yeah, just come here. And, we both were just like hugging for about a good 2 minutes. So kind of stopping that interaction as much as possible. And then where you're sitting down, I'm assuming you normally have table rounds where everybody sits.
Yes, ma'am.
And so a lot of the table rounds, right, seat 8 or 10 people around them, almost shoulder to shoulder. So if you can spread that apart and put some distance, because I can't wear a mask and eat lunch, right? It's just not possible. And so if there's a way for you to spread out and just maybe have, I don't know, 3 people at a table, something like that. The masks if you can't keep the social distance, right? If Mark and I are talking and we're 6 feet away, and I have lots of conversations like that with people, then okay. But if there's a lot of people in there before we sit down to eat, I really do recommend the cloth face mask. They're not foolproof. No one's trying to put that over on anybody that they're foolproof, but they certainly do catch some of those respiratory droplets if I'm infectious and I don't even know it, right? And so it will catch some of those respiratory droplets to keep them from landing on you. So you do decrease the risk of transmission if people can wear these. So you might mandate it, you might strongly encourage it. However, I don't know how you all want to handle that, but that certainly is one method to reduce transmission, especially if people can't consistently maintain that distance. If you've got folks do you have people up on a like up on a
No,
table?
no. The only event we've had has been outside, and I would say the difficulty was too many people would end up going to a table just because it was their first time out, and so I think we could enforce that a lot more, at least by strongly recommending
The mask.
the mask or just distancing themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and you can set your tables you're wherever at the continuing ed center. Is that where you're still meeting?
Well, we're not. We're not right now, and we're going to a long type table. So that'll be an opportunity where we can sit every other person next week, and then the following week we can probably. I don't know whether we'll have round tables or what, but we can do that where we can just put 3 at a table.
Okay. So anything that you can do to reduce the risk of transmission between people is recommended. And so that's the spacing your tables apart, having people wear masks if they can't stay apart, trying to reduce shaking hands and hugging. You also can work to reduce transmission by not having self-serve food. Like, how you have a buffet style where people come up and everybody grabs the same spoon to serve. So if you're serving food, I would either have it served by servers, right, who also would have masks on, I would hope, and they would serve individual plates, or have those workers, if you have a buffet line, have it where those workers are serving each person instead of everybody picking up and 70 people picking up the same spoon. That will help. The restaurants are already under the executive orders, and that goes for any place that would cater for you and all of that. So they have certain guidelines that they have to follow to reduce transmission as part of the governor's executive order. So, for example, instead of having utensils set out in a place setting, it's required that they roll them up in a napkin, right? And that's done by one person in the back, and it's rolled up, and that gets placed to you instead of having a few different people set out utensils that you put in your mouth, right? So you'll see some of that, I bet, just from your caterer. Other things to reduce transmission. Let me just go on to the next one, and then let me see if there's other questions. The next one is kind of what can you do to kill the virus if it does get transmitted. And so, encouraging people to wash their hands more frequently. If you can have hand sanitizer on your tables, that's a good thing, because before they start to eat, right? They can do hand sanitizer. If everybody hasn't run to the restroom and washed their hands, you've got some little bottles, just bottles of hand sanitizer on the tables or something that people could sanitize, and then when they start eating, that could help reduce some transmission and kill the virus. Let me stop there and just see what questions you have.
I thought that those were some good ideas. I hadn't thought about getting the hand sanitizers, and we have JRM, which is our saviors as far as getting everything set up for us. And so they're on the call, so I'm sure that they took note of that. So that was a great idea. Thank you, Lisa.
I'm assuming you have a podium, maybe?
Yes.
You've got several speakers. So I would, as those speakers are up together on a head table or something, it's not a bad idea for them to, if they're kind of in close proximity to each other, to have their masks on. But they can take it off, of course, when they go up to the podium. Now, that some of them might not feel comfortable doing that, but they could. I would just, I hope people have gotten the message about not putting their mouth so close to the microphone. Sometimes people do that, and they're really right on it. And so
you're scaring me. I just did that probably last night, so I'm nervous.
So ideally, just have them stand back like you're kind of supposed to, right? And stand back from the microphone. They'll be fine. And so that's something, because if you have people who come up one after the other, and they're getting so close that their mouth is actually touching the microphone. I mean, I can see people that put the mic like right here, right? Because they're nervous, and they'll move, if it's a handheld mic, they move it all around, right? And you can't hear them half the time. And so a lot of people will take a mic and stick it right here and then hand it to the next person. And you're like, wait, don't do that anymore. So,
Shelley's even smiling because I think she does that. So
who?
Stop it. Well, then I think that the other alternative would be to wipe the mic off before you hand it off. Maybe with the sanitizer. It's
just you have to be careful because the technology of that microphone. I mean, it's one thing to wipe the handles off, but if you actually wipe the mic part off with a hand sanitizer, it could be a little. It might break the mic, so just be a little cautious of that.
Hi, kids.
That won't mic up.
Hey, yeah. So you're talking about something in my world. Don't even try that, because the ball of a microphone is porous anyway, so anything's going to be inside that. So that wiping the head off doesn't do it. I'll go back to lay down.
Shelley, just no more licking the microphone, and we're fine.
You know what? You guys take all the fun out of my life.
No, we don't.
Give me some other scenarios, maybe that within the meeting that you're concerned about or anything. Or John, knowing changes that we've made in some of the chamber meetings compared to the setup of the KBA meeting.
I'll share this. So, Shelley, JRM management, Lisa, I'm not sure. Are you pretty familiar with those guys?
Say that again, John?
Todd Miller, Bill Watson, Jonathan Jenkins. He goes, do you know some of the folks in JRM management?
Uh-huh.
So they do the fair that hopefully will exist here again soon, that North Georgia State Fair. They do KBA, the Ackworth Business Association, the Marietta Business Association, Northeast Cobb. And I've been just recently to one of their Ackworth Business Association gatherings. And then they did the whole Georgia Grown event with us. So they've been doing a bunch of events through this COVID-19 morphing program. So, Shelley, I think there's even aspect understanding that you've got such a top team that's part of this dialogue that's even on the call, that have been doing events. And I see they've got another Ackworth breakfast coming up that's an outside event, and, attending those to see, that they're kind of on top of a lot of the social distancing. So I think you've even got a group that's probably has a lot of the steps that they're possibly even utilizing from multiple different locations.
I think, John, and you might want to weigh in on this, but I think that one of the issues is, and you probably saw it when we had the luncheon outside, I mean, there were a lot of tables where there were 6 people right next to each other.
Yep. Well, and you're exactly right. And just like yesterday, I was on with Bert Brown with Governor's Gun Club, because there's many organizations starting to look at Bert's place. And I'm like, Bert, look, you are an architect. You've got the CAD program. You've got to lay this out, just like the Roxy did for us. They gave us 5 or 6 different layouts for us to examine, and then determine for us as the chamber to say, what are we comfortable with? What's it, what's the first time that we're going to gather look like, and what it can look like down the road potentially. So just like Bert, of whatever facility you're going to look at doing, then it's a matter of saying, just like when we did the Strand did a lot of work to make sure they X'd off a lot of places. Mm-hmm. So you're right, for that outside gathering, if we were doing that again, now we know you've almost got to, tape off, seats on those picnic tables to really overly spread things out. Sure, it's going to look weird, feel weird, but it's kind of the way we can show as the board for KBA the safety and care that we want to have for our members, so that they come to the environment and not feel like they were at risk or vulnerable, and they walked into something, then they were uncomfortable to just walk around and turn and leave, and that's awkward. So, this dialogue is a vital piece of it. Then it's the next step, figuring out what location you're going to do and how you're going to deal with. At the end of the day, it's 6 foot apart for the social distancing. We as the chamber have always been doing masks in, masks out. And in some cases, just like the Strand, and just look like the airplane I'm going to be on later. They're saying, we want you to have masks the entire time. So if you're going to be less than 6 feet, know that we're going to have masks the whole time. Knowing that folks are not going to want to do that, you're going to need to find a space or an environment that's going to allow you to at least get that 6 foot separation, so that people can go in, take the masks off, eat their food, enjoy the event, get the content they're looking for. They're going to put their mask back on, have that no social, the networking that's going to happen. It's going to be a little different, because I'm not going to hug Lisa. It's going to be a little different from that, but it's still us morphing the steps of what this new norm for the next, 12 months or 18 months can look like.
Hey, Shelley, you might, as you talk to wherever you're going to meet, the location, that site manager ought to be able to help you with some of that. I mean, I think it's human nature, right, of some of these venues to set up 6 or 8 chairs around a table. And so they may think, oh, we normally have 10 seating here, but let's just go to 6. And that's still a little too close, right? And so you may have to go in and say, I want 3 or 4 chairs around it, and I don't want other chairs here. I want you to take those chairs away. Yep. Like in our break rooms and everything, we've taken the tables and taken the chairs away so that folks aren't tempted, because it's human nature, right? And it's years of habit. And so you want to take that away a little bit so that it's an easy choice to not pull up 5 or 6 chairs around the same table. And so you just may have to purposefully ask your venue to help you with that.
Okay, Bill.
On the inside it'll be a lot easier, as Lisa mentioned earlier. So we'll definitely do the layout with the spacing, and especially we can only have 50 inside, so it gives us a lot of space to do that, to actual social distance. So we'll definitely make sure that happens.
Jonathan, are you the venue? Am I talking about?
Or I'm with JRM Management. Actually, I'm Bill. I'm on Jonathan's.
Okay.
And we've corresponded getting ready for this meeting, but he's the one that has the account that doesn't expire in 45 minutes. So I want to make sure that we're on here. So that's happened before, but.
Thanks, Bill. Okay.
But we are, and the one thing that I think we've been doing most of what you said, except for the CDC symptom guidelines. That I'll make sure we have a sign with that, because we have capabilities to do signage, and we'll definitely have that. And I think that's the one thing that we haven't been doing, but we'll make sure we're getting that done.
I thought her idea. I'm sorry, Lisa. I thought her idea about the hand sanitizers at each table. If you sit down at a table and it's sitting there, you're going to use it. Mm-hmm. And it could be just that one little bit that's extra that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
are they hard to get?
It hasn't been lately. It was horrible to get, but we haven't had as much trouble lately to get like these kind of things.
Oh, Mike wants to say something.
Yeah, this is really for Bill. Go buy blank empty pump bottles, just generic pump bottles. The large half-gallon refills are easily available at Home Depot or Lowe's. I know I got a closet full at the dance studio. So don't try and buy the little individual Purells. Buy the big half-gallon refills and just fill up empty bottles that are generic.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Thanks. That's a good idea.
Whoops, where'd I go?
Any other questions?
How are you doing?
Good.
Are you feeling pressure?
I'm sorry?
Do you feel pressure every day to be somewhere, do something?
Well, so we haven't stopped working. You know, we've been working 6-7 days a week since the 1st of March. And so, you know, like a lot of you, right? I mean, I know a lot of small business owners, John, that work 12, 14 hours a day anyway, without a pandemic around.
Well,
so,
he plays.
John,
there's others
work?
of us
Yeah.
that actually work. He just plays.
Yeah, he's still in bed. See?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, John. That's really mean. You're still in Mexico?
Yes, he is.
I'm packing my bags. I got to leave shortly.
Man.
It's a rough life. It
is a rough life.
Yeah.
Hey, just know that my phone works everywhere. I'm on it.
So, you know, our biggest thing right now is that we don't have a way to treat this and to prevent it other than individual behaviors. And so until we have a vaccine, that's why we're really dependent on everybody's behaviors to help with this. And so that's the hardest part for us, is that, you know, this morning, our epidemiologist had about 350 new cases drop in their lap. And so that means they've got to do case investigation on every one of those people and find out who they've been in contact with and try and get folks to isolate and quarantine. And the difficult part is that, one, it can spread so easily, but two, there's not much that the medical community can do to help it other than help you all with certain behaviors, right? About the physical distancing and washing your hands and wearing your masks and trying to take care of yourself and be as healthy as you can be, right? To ward off those kind of things. And so that's the most frustrating part, is when we see folks who are like we just had today. We just have an outbreak today from a wedding that had 250 people in it, and no social distancing, no masks, and we've got a major group of positive individuals that came out of just that because of the wedding. And so it's like we just want folks to try to do as much as they can individually so that we can all get through it. So until there's a vaccine or something. So that's the hard part, is just you can't give a pill, you can't give a shot, you can't do anything. You just have to say, do these things, and they're all counter to what we all
it's unnatural. It's unnatural to go to it.
Yes.
To go to a group event and keep your distance.
Oh, let me tell you, you know, those of you who know me, you know, I'm hugging everybody every day I see them. And so it is completely unnatural. But it's kind of all we have. So
right.
I appreciate that y'all are trying to figure out all those things to do so that you can continue to have the networking and the education while still being safe. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very, very much. Are there any other questions before we let Lisa do something much more important? Well, probably it is very important because you're informing us. So, you know, we appreciate it a great deal.
And Mark,
thank you, Lisa.
Give Betsy a hug, because she's working her tail off with the Y as well.
Yes, she is.
They're trying to fill so many gaps for so many people in the community. So I'm on a call.
They're the best. They are the best. The Y people are the best. What a great team.
John, I interrupted you. Did you have something you wanted to add?
nothing intelligent. I'm sure it's just bragging. Yeah, go ahead. Show us. Get it up. I'm sorry, the wind is too loud, John. We can't hear you.
All right. Well, let us let you go back to work, and thank you very much for this. And I think that that's going to help with JRM quite a bit as far as, helping us do a better job of distancing.